Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to the year 2025. That's right. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a fantastic time with friends, family, and loved ones. And I'm wishing you all the best of luck and to have a happy, prosperous, and healthy 2025. Let's see where this year takes us all, and let's hope it leads to good things or better things. Or if you had a crappy 2024, let's hope this year is a better one for you. With that said, let's kick off 2025 with a film review of a film that I personally have been waiting for nearly an entire year. Now, Christmas is a very funny time to release a movie like this, but clearly Focus Features had a lot of faith in what they had. And, Robert Eggars, he's an amazing director. He's a very artistic, visually styled director. He's all about vision, imagery, and also, in my opinion, he's a very good actor that delivers very strong actors in very character-driven, centric roles. And the film we're about to talk about is none other than Nosferatu. And, I'm a big fan of the 1979 remake of this movie, which is very artistic stylized, and it has a great cast. It's just overall just an epic film. And of course, you have the original 1930s black and white silent movie as well. But Robert Eggers, this is like his dream project. He's very passionate about Nosferatu. This is a film that he has envisioned making for many, many years. And now he's finally got his hands on it and was finally able to deliver, I guess, his version of the story that he wanted to tell. So, without further ado, let's get into Nosferatu 2024. So, Nosferatu is a 2024 American Gothic horror film written and directed by Robert Eggars. It is a remake of the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, which was inspired by Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. The film stars Bill Skarsgård as the titular character and Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp as the married Hutter couple, with Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, Simon McBurney, and Willem Dafoe in supporting roles. Now, I'll go back to Robert Eggars. He's kind of cultivated himself as this artistic, like I say, very stylized director. He's had a number of films under his belt. He had The Witch, was the first one that gave him some exposure. Then he did The Lighthouse, for me, is his best movie to date. It is it's a black and white movie with two main characters, including Willem Dafoe. And it was just such an epic movie in terms of the story, its characters, and its visualization. And then he kind of upped the ante and had like a mini drama / action movie, The Northman, about Viking mythology. And now he's moved on to Nosferatu, his dream project. Now, the one thing I will say about Nosferatu, what I loved about this is simply its colours, its atmospheric tones, its huge, grand visuals. And he is the master of doing this, and he's done it in his own style, and it works perfectly for this kind of genre film, this Nosferatu. The story of Nosferatu is the unauthorized story of Bram Stoker's Dracula. That is what it began as. But since its early beginnings, Nosferatu himself, Count Orlok, has now become his own identity and has gained, all around the world his own group of fans. And if you look at many horror films or television series, they'll always feature like the Nosferatu type vampire. The one that stands out the most is, of course, in Salem's Lot. That, main villain vampire in Salem's Lot is clearly based off Nosferatu. So it's definitely inspired other vampires around the world and other television and film dramas. The story is very simple. This story starts off with the very beautiful and very talented Lily Rose Depp. She looks fantastic in this, and I genuinely believe she is that good in this. She deserves to be nominated for an Oscar. She is, sympathetic. You have sympathy for her. Ellen Hutter is the name of her character. She's a German woman recently married to her husband Thomas, and she's described as a pure woman, an angelic wife who, in her lonely youth sought out a guardian angel or spirit to comfort her. And it's during that time when she was younger and she was lonely and depressed and she was seeking out, something to better her life or change her life, which a lot of young people do. A lot of young people seek guidance and they're looking for that thing to pull them out of a dark place. And that's just calling out something very sinister finds her. And then it moves on, the story, several years later, many years later, where she is now married to her husband, Thomas, played fantastically as well by Nicholas Hoult. And, he is on the cusp of, gaining a new career in a state agency, being made a partner. And he, is, asked by his boss to go into basically seal the deal on a aristocrat, a count up in the Carpathian Mountains, to try and seal this deal on a property in Germany. And he's sent there by Simon McBurney's character, Nock. And this is Nock. Nock, quite frankly, is the Renfield of this story. And it's all kind of, there's all kind of a mystery behind it. There's all like secrecy behind it. So Thomas sets off to the Carpathian Mountains to get this contract signed on this property that the Count is about to buy. There's other characters involved in this story, and the other characters are, you've got Aaron Taylor Johnson's character here, who plays Frederick, who is Thomas's rich friend, who has basically inherited the shipyard and the shipping business from his wealthy family. And he is also married to the lovely Emma Corrin, who plays Anna. They have 2 children and a baby on the way. And so these characters are all intertwined, unfortunately, in this mystery of the past, the past and the future colliding. And the great thing I'm going to say about this film is that, for me personally, the first two Nosferatus were definitely an unauthorized version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then they added German folklore and Romanian history and, added their culture in and mixed it in with the original story of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which gave it its uniqueness and made it stand out. And this does exactly the same in many, many ways. You have the Carpathian Mountain scenes, which I recently have been to Romania. I was there in October. So I have seen those mountains with my very own eyes. I've seen the scenic views. I have seen the trees. I've seen the gypsy people that were, the older gypsy people, and then obviously the modern culture as well, all interlinked and intermingling. And so that was fascinating to me. I seen all the old churches and all of that kind of stuff. So the great thing I like about this, as well as the first two Nosferatus, it definitely tries to, mix in the Bram Stoker Dracula story, but also tries to give it its own identity. And how they have done that in this is by giving, not just the focus on Thomas Hutter, but his wife and Count Orlok, who is the Count in the Carpathian Mountains. They've now given them a much deeper connection and a much deeper, plot that I'm not going to spoil. There is big reveals that are revealed throughout the movie. So their connection is much stronger in this than it was in the original and the other remake. Now, if you take away the plot, which if you've seen the first two, you know the plot. If you haven't seen the first two, check out the original, check out the first remake. Now, if you take away those elements, this tries to be, this is probably Robert Eggers' biggest film in terms of its stylization. Now, some of the scenery in this movie is just outstanding. Some of the shots in this. So this shot of Count Orlok, which I am going to talk a bit about him soon. This scene walking along the beach with near the gravestones. This shot alone, I absolutely love. The mountainous, shot, very much inspired by, I definitely believe, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Definitely takes a lot. Now, this was probably my favorite scene in the movie, the eeriness of when Thomas is making his way to the Carpathian Mountains, to the Count's castle, and he's having to walk through this tree-like forest area. The colorizations of all the different shades of grey, blues, blacks, just works wonders, yeah. And when you see the horse and cart, the horse and carriage, approach him, it generally is atmospheric, and I loved every minute of it. So the basic plot, like I say, it's this pass between, Depp's character, between my mind's went blank. Ellen, it's Ellen's history with this mysterious past and this entity, and now it kind of jumps forward and mixes in with the Bram Stoker's Dracula story. Now, Count Orlok, when you first meet him, he is surrounded in mystery. Like I say, you don't really get to see him full on. And the thing that makes him stand out is the voice. Now, Bill Skarsgård, as you know, played Pennywise the Clown. And he has recently done in an interview that, this film was in development hell, I guess, for a number of years. And during that time, he was actually meant to play the Nicholas Hoult character, Thomas. But for whatever reason, years down the line, he still managed to get, be a part of this movie and was cast as Count Orlok. And even Robert Eggars has said that the reason he cast him as Count Orlok is generally because he's seen a particular scene of him in human form as Pennywise in It Chapter 2, I believe. And that's what made him cast him as Orlok, because he loved the kind of characterizations and his performance as Pennywise the Clown as a human rather than the clown makeup, because you visually could see his expressions and all of that. Now, Count Orlok for me in this was the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise for me in terms of look and how they operated him throughout the movie. For me, the main star in this is Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Hoult. That's what I liked about this the most, is that the whole focus was on their story, Lily Rose Depp's story of having this shady past, with, being lonely and wanting to, find something or anchor towards something to bring her into like a happier place. And she unfortunately found something very dark and evil and mysterious. And then you have the character that Nicholas Hoult plays, Thomas, who just wants to be a good husband, who wants to provide for his wife, who was then swept in and sucked into this very dark place himself, and is run with all these horrendous emotions and out of desperation, and is, scared out of his wits. And that they are the stars of this for me personally. Now, as for the rest of the movie, amazing visuals, amazing stylizations, amazing, way of using light and camera shots, everything that you expect from a Robert Eggars movie. But this movie does fail a lot on a number of marks. And where it fails is, for me, is there is too much build up, there is too much, focus on certain aspects of the plot and aspects of characters, that it takes away from everything else that the other two did so well. And, for me personally, the character of Frederick, I enjoyed his character. I had sympathy for his character. He didn't really add anything to the plot. Aaron Taylor Johnson is a fantastic actor. He did well with what the role he was given, but I think there was too much back and forth with all these newer characters that it took away the main focus of Thomas, Ellen, and Count Orlok. Now, Count Orlok is frightening in this, but you don't really get to see a lot of him. His characterization is all due through the voice and hiding in the shadows. And I do miss those times in the original and in the 1979 remake, where it was like him having conversations with Thomas, and and him sitting at a table and visually looking at Thomas and frightening him with a sheer look. Everything's done via his vocalization, through his tone of voice, through hiding in the shadows. When you do visually get to see him, does he look menacing? Does he look frightening? Yes, but not. I wouldn't say frightening, just more uncomfortable. I think he's more, makes you feel more uncomfortable than in fear. And I was in fear of the original Nosferatu, Count Orlok. In the remake, I had fear of him. In this, I wouldn't say I was frightened of him. I was more or less uncomfortable by him. And maybe that is the road that Robert Eggars wanted to go down, because he had seen what the directors of the first one, the original and the remake, did. He might have wanted to change things up and not make you feel fear, but make you feel uncomfortable. And if that was his job with this version of Orlok, he succeeded, as far as I'm concerned. Did I enjoy the movie? I enjoyed the movie and I enjoyed the plot, but I do think it is too long for what it is. I think that there was a lot of time wasted on other plot points that could have been executed better. Now, I was building myself up for some epic scenes with the rats, for example. As you know, we had the plague many, many years ago. Germany was hit by the plague. Now, in the 1979 remake, when the ship arrives into Germany, you had these amazing scenes of the rats now scouring across, the cobbles and around the streets. They could have done so much better with this featuring that element. And for me, the rats were saved for one particular scene featuring William Dafoe. Now, William Dafoe's character enters the film basically halfway through, when they have no answers to what's going on with Ellen. She is, convulsing, she's shaking, she seems possessed because this entity, this evil thing that she met many years ago is now haunting her in her dreams once again and is coming after her. And Thomas, Frederick, the doctor who's around her are totally helpless with it all. And some of the scene with Ellen, Lily Rose Depp, is just uncomfortable. She really, delivers in every aspect of her performance. Like ripping, there's a scene where her eyes are rolling in the back of her head. There's so much that she delivers. She's very much a versatile, amazing actress in this. And William Dafoe's character comes in is basically the Van Helsing character. He is studying the occult. He's learning all about the history of occultism. And so they kind of bring these elements in that I don't think were featured in the first two, in the original and the remake. They didn't talk about, occultist and all that and, things like that. So that was another new element that was brought into this particular film. And do I think it worked? Yes and no. I think there's a lot of time spent trying to explain why the events are happening around instead of maybe finding it and doing it faster and then focusing more on Orlok and focusing on more of him getting more of a deeper hold on the character of Ellen and also showing Thomas really struggling to deal with the impact of what he's witnessed and everything that's going on around him and trying to get back to Ellen to save her life from the events that's happening. In all, how do I think of Nosferatu 2024? Nosferatu 2024 has a lot of positives, but it just has a few of those knocking negatives that I can't seem to skip over. Like I said, amazing visuals. The cast is fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic. It's a really well put together, big budget art house type movie, the way Robert Eggars does. But I think he's focused too much on all of the other elements and kind of skipped over the things that made the original and the remake so fascinating. And that is in all Count Orlok. Count Orlok is a huge part of those two movies. He's fearful, he's scary. In this, I found him very grotesque and uncomfortable. I found some of his scenes, that he's featured, like there's the scene on the boat, there's a scene when Thomas first awakens him in his coffin. They are uncomfortable. Are they scary? Do they make me think he's going to be rememberable years down the line? I'm not quite sure. I think the 1979 Orlok is a bit more iconic. I can understand why he's changed his appearance because, as you know, he did cast Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård is kind of typecasted now when it comes to horror, thanks to Pennywise. And I think, he's got such a recognizable face now that to hide from that is very hard to do, especially the eyes. And he did everything in his power to give him such a unique and different look. And I don't know if that worked for me personally. I'm quite used to the original Orlok, the Orlok from the remake, and I'm just surmising that despite him saying this is his Orlok, he always envisioned him to look the way he did in this movie. A part of me think he actually just really edited his look because of who he cast. And that's a sad thing to me, to think he had to think out of the box and go, right, I've cast Bill Skarsgård. If I make him just bald, pale, he's probably going to look more like Voldemort than a vampire. Or what can I do to alter his look? And so he made him more like a feral kind of beast type of vampire rather than this, very creepy, very, count-like vampire. But at the same time, if we look at Bram Stoker's Dracula, you had, you had Gary Oldman's version that took real history with Vlad the Impaler and combined the two, and he wasn't just walking around with a red, a black and white cape on and looking like a count. They actually kind of altered it to make it feel more realistic and part of history, and they've kind of done that with Orlok here. I just don't know if it personally works for me. Like I say, it does have some pacing issues. I do think it could have been shortened by at least half an hour, and there's supposed to be an extended version coming out on physical media when it's finally released. I don't know how I feel about that unless it's going to feature more of Orlok, who I think was kind of put to the side to really enhance on Thomas and Ellen's characters. There's some great visuals, like I say, great cinematography. It's outstanding with its look, and it is really a hard film for me to judge after one viewing. And I'm only seeing all what I'm seeing after seeing it last night in theaters. And I went in with a lot of optimism, a lot of, hope, and a lot of, I hope this is the film that I want it to be. And now that I'm out of the theaters, I'm still torn with the emotions. I'm still torn with my feelings because it is a fantastic film. It is definitely probably going to be, I would like to think it's going to go down and be a cult classic, but I don't think it's going to be as remembered as fondly as the first remake. And I generally believe that when people talk about Robert Eggers' career down the line, I think The Lighthouse will always be his top movie. And if I had to rank Robert Eggers' films, I would rank them in this order. I would probably rank The Witch. Then I'd probably rank Nosferatu, The Northman, and then, of course, The Lighthouse is always number one, in my opinion. That's how I would rank this. So, like I say, great visuals, great acting, amazing cinematography. There's just the pacing issues and a lot of time, I think, spent focused on things when they could have focused a lot more on what they needed to. Now, is it scary? It has very uncomfortable. There is some dark horror to this. So that is something that this has another plus on. It has some very uncomfortable, dark, scary moments. There's, deaths that happen that are quite uncomfortable to watch. Seeing Orlok, when you do see him near the end on screen, you do finally get to see him in all his glory. He does look, grotesque, and, he does make you feel uncomfortable, but I wasn't scared by him. But what can I say? That's just my opinion. If I had to rank Nosferatu 2024, I'm probably going to give this a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 because it is a great movie. It does have great stuff in it, but there's just those knocking qualities I can't let go. But I still think Nosferatu is well worth a watch. And I do recommend seeing it in theaters for just the visuals alone, and the atmospheric tones, the colors, everything you expect from Robert Eggers is in this. And like I say, you do have the horror elements in this and the uncomfortable moments in this. So 7 out of 10 for me for Nosferatu 2024. Is it something I would go see again in theatre? Potentially I might, because like I say, I am slightly torn with everything. With me emotions, with how I'm thinking about this. So who knows, I might revisit this down the line. But Nosferatu 2024 gets a 7 out of 10. Great visuals, great cinematography, amazing cast. Lily Rose Depp deserves to be nominated for an Oscar. Uncomfortableness, atmospheric, and a handful of scares. So that's just my review. Keep on enjoying your movies. Keep on enjoying all things entertainment. Let me know yourself what you think of Nosferatu in the comments below. But like I always say, catch us all at the next one.